Yeah, I'm definitely not making this video, by the way, because I saw some awfully sad comic of Furina dying of old age while neuvillette looks exactly the same, but we move. Is Furina's story over? And when I say this, let me just throw in the caveat, in the bigger scheme of things. I'm not saying she's gonna fade into irrelevancy, but as a human, there isn't much story relevance she can have moving forward in regards to the overarching story. But you know, is it gonna be in a, haha, I'm Amber, you can go pick a flower with me? Or is it gonna be in the Zhongli, ayo, I'm ready to scrap with the primordial one, my nigga? Given her divinity has faded and the divine seed has been destroyed, what's next for her? Is there a way back into the game for her? And more importantly, would she want that? Let me answer the final question first, because from reading her story, it's pretty clear what she wants. Visions are usually objects that appear in response to humankind's most fervent wishes, but this one in particular seemed more like a reward for her past deeds. As Furina grasped it, its reflected radiance seemed to contain her heart, filled once again by this performance. Performing had in the past brought her much pain, to the point where she had turned her back on the stage, but she indubitably understood the glory and brilliance of the stage best of all, and could give those who chase their dreams on the stage her matchless guidance and support. As to the question of what to do next, which had plagued her for so long, she now had a clear answer: to see this world from the perspective of the audience and create the greatest performances without stepping on stage. No longer would her attention be focused only on musicals, as long as it's related to performance, Furina is interested in taking part from behind the curtain. Assuming this passage isn't literally just referring to Furina's future in the performing arts, the sentence "to see this world from the perspective of the audience and create the greatest performances without stepping on stage" is pretty clear in describing Furina's future. Having been thrusted into the spotlight for 500 years straight, she wants to take a moment of reprieve and become an audience member, as opposed to continuing to being an actor on the main stage. However, I did want to draw comparisons in Furina wanting to work from behind the curtain with what Focalors did, because it's pretty much the same thing, no? Focalors created the greatest performance ever behind the curtain, just as Furina wants to do now. But for now, it seems like Furina is content on living a human life after all she's been through. I'm not sure how much time has passed in-game since we started, but it would be pretty funny to see Fontaine's reaction to Furina aging more in 5 years than she did in the last 500, but whatever. But even with Furina's wishes being plain and clear, let's do a hypothetical. Why not? Huh? Could Furina regain her divinity and become a god once more? Now, this is a fun question because it delves into the nature of what a god in Teyvat is and how someone can become one. And once we answer these questions, you'll see Furina's path to godhood becomes strikingly clear even if it isn't what she wants. So the first question, what is a god? Well, this is quite simple. In Teyvat, gods are a species of humans that have great control over the element and live a lot longer than humans. That's pretty much it, man. One important thing to note, however, is that gods are immortal. Hey, full stop. This is not me coping or anything like that. I am not coping when I say gods are immortal. It's written as plain as a name on the grave in Joust Story 1. Take a look here. Gods are immortal. Yeah, see, that's some good shit. Let's keep going. Their consciousness may diminish, but their power and hatred will always remain and spread like poison, relentlessly stirring up chaos for the world and its inhabitants. When a god dies, you see, their power leaves their body and seeps into the environment or what have you. For instance, the god of Salt's power was kept in her relics for thousands of years after her death. Andreas' physical body was long destroyed, but his spirit remains. Now, for those arguing the opposite happened to Furina, then I present to you Guoba, a god who let their divinity become one with the environment. Granted, it meant Guoba turned into an Unga Bunga person. Now, I get that these cases are different because Focalors' entire being was purely her divinity, but one simple fact remains. After a god dies, their power flows from them. And we can see that in Focalors' case. But what comes of this power and where did it go? When other gods have died, their power usually leads to some minor inconveniences, such as all the people of Sal Tarai being turned into salts, or the people of Yashiori Island going insane. Now, that's not to say it's all bad. When Andreas died, he used his power to heal the land around him. Every archon that has died so far, we've still interacted with or continue to live on in some way. Egeria's consciousness is in the desert, Rukadavatos was in Irminsul, and Makoto's was in A's sword. Me and my cope find it nigh impossible that Focalors has managed to do the absolute impossible by killing off both her divinity and her consciousness from the realm, as it was already stated, gods are immortal. Now, for those of you going, well, we know where Focalors' power went. It went right into neuvillette so he could gain his full dragonhood. I say no. While I agree this power flowing is Focalors, I don't think neuvillette absorbed the shit or whatever he does to regain his full dragonhood. Neuvillette received his authority when the Divine Throne was destroyed, which just so happens to be at the same time that Focalors died. The manner by which they both ceased was the same, but the reasons were different. Focalors died according to prophecy. I mean, I still don't get why she had to die, I'm going to be completely honest. Whereas the throne was destroyed because Focalors wanted to return Neuvillette's authority back to him. Furthermore, gods in Teyvat exist independently of their divine thrones, as demonstrated by the fact that they existed before the Archon War, and there were some who existed after it without a seat like Guoba and Urabashi. So I ask again, if gods are immortal, where did Focalors' divinity and consciousness go following her death? Maybe we'll find out in Furina's second story quest, where Focalors' consciousness just gets in contact with Furina, and she goes, "Look, I know I wanted you to be a human, but you gotta pick up this power, man." And Furina's like, "Oh, no worries, I'll do it. No worries, no worries." And then bada bing, bada boom, Furina's a god again. Another method by which Furina can become a god is through the People of Fontaine. Depending on your level of investment in Genshin, you either manage to get the Fontaine Wind Glider last patch, or most likely this patch. If you haven't gotten around to reading the lore, it randomly, or maybe not randomly, tells us by which process someone with no divinity can become a god. It tells us this because this is the story of Egeria, the previous Hydro Archon. Egeria was first created as a heart for the primordial sea, however, quote, "that heart had like nobility unto a dragon but lacked its outer form, and had the majesty of a god yet was bereft of any divine duty. And though it was created by a ruler of humans, its substance and essence were all original matter from this world, entirely without outside elements." In it, it makes note to point out that Egeria had no divine duty, that is until something interesting happened. Humans desire judgment because they feel guilty. Humans want, and so they want to give things up. Humans always desire a god. That is why the Primordial Sea's heart's gentle Egeria was awarded a shard of that one who was first, and gained both an Archon's right and the divine duty come lately. Was this the desire of humans having reached the heavens, or was it merely an opening act of a dark string of plots? Well, isn't that something? It seems as if Egeria became a god through the humans' desire for a god reaching the heavens, but what exactly does this mean, and why was Egeria selected? It might have to do with how the people viewed Egeria. You see, following the collapse of the kingdom of Rumeria, Egeria was there to pick up the pieces and gather the survivors. She helped to establish new cities and united the people. Hell, she made Fontaine. To them, even if she had no divine duty, she was essentially their god. She had saved them and allowed them to continue to live and prosper. Thus, when humans naturally desired a god in the absence of one, it was only natural that Egeria would be the one who became their god. She was their savior, bereft of any divine duty, so it made complete sense that eventually she'd gain it at their will. In her own way, Furina saved the people of Fontaine with no divine duty. She was but a human, and although she once had divinity, existed autonomously without it for 500 years. I mean, there are some big differences between the two stories, of course, the first being that the people of Fontaine really have no idea what Furina did because it was all hidden, whereas Egeria was performing her acts out in the open. Maybe if there existed some journalist in Fontaine who's always eager to find the next nation-rattling story, but I don't know if that person exists. The second is, I literally have no idea if the people of Fontaine view Furina as a human or a god. I mean, she was proved guilty to be a human during the trial, but again, I really don't know. The people in Fontaine seem really dumb. The final way in which Furina would normally be able to become a god is by being an allogene. But there are a couple of problems here. For those unaware, an allogene is someone with a vision. I mean, that's pretty much it. What an allogene is able to do, however, is when they die, ascend to Celestia and become a god. However, Furina's case is unique. Her vision wasn't handed to her by Celestia, but rather the Sovereign of Water. As such, it seems illogical that the same rules would apply, and even if they did, and she did ascend to Celestia, I give it about 2 seconds before they quadruple team her and send her to hell for destroying that throne. Anyway, Furina's future in regards to what role she'll play in the story seems like it'll be decided in her second story act during patch 4.6. But until then, I've got a rather large canister of hopium that's shan't run out. But regardless, I'm sure this isn't the last time we'll see her.